If you are not Muslim in Sudan, really you're not even second class. You're like sixth class. That is what is going on. Genocide have been taking place for many, many years. More than 20 years, since 1985, when the civilian war started in Sudan. People of Nuba, they have been dying, children, pastors, the church have been destroyed. The believers have been burned inside the church during their worship on Sunday.
Mid-South Viewpoint, a Christian news and information feature of Bott Radio Network 640 AM, discussing the news, views, issues, and concerns that affect our community. Join us now for today's edition of Mid-South Viewpoint.
Hi, and welcome to Mid-South Viewpoint. I'm Byron Tyler. Recently, in an article written in the New York Times by Jeffrey Gentleman, Ryan Boyette, an American aid worker living in Sudan's Nuba Mountains, was in a thatched roof office on a clear January day when he heard two thunderous blasts. The Sudanese military had been relentlessly bombing the Nuba Mountains since June, killing hundreds of civilians trying to squash a dug-in rebel movement. The Nubian people take cover in caves. Sudanese army, according to Mr. Boye, and weapons experts in East Africa, has begun using long-range Chinese-made rockets to bombard the Nuba Mountains. The rockets, fired from more than 25 miles away, travel at 3,000 miles per hour and pack a 330-pound warhead, often loaded with steel ball bearings to increase lethality, experts say. Now, according to Mr. Boyette, more than 70 rockets have been fired into the Nuba Mountains since December, killing 18 people, including several children. Today, we want to talk about the Nuba people there in Sudan. They're getting a lot of attention on the news lately. Just recently, actor George Clooney, was arrested in front of the Sudanese embassy in Washington, D.C. to make a statement about the atrocity taking place here. I received an email recently from a dear friend of mine, Dr. Greg Spears, who is with Mid-South Baptist Association. He is a church planting strategist, and he's been sharing with me about efforts to try to bring relief to the Nuba people and where they are right now. And so we want to welcome Dr. Spears to our program. Greg, so good to see you. Welcome back to Bott Radio Network.
Glad to be here.
When did you first become acquainted with the Nuba people?
Wow, back in 2001, got a call from a young man who's with us here today. And I went down and I met Nasser Kaju and his precious wife, Major. I began to understand what was happening, specifically with the Nuba, and then in a larger context with the Sudanese people as a whole, as that nation has been in civil war for many decades.
And this is an important factor for us in the Mid-South because we have quite a few Sudanese refugees and those who have fled their country because of the genocide and because of the war, the civil war. Heard reports, of course, for years about Darfur and all of the atrocities there taking place. There are a community of Sudanese believers among other people from African nations right here in Memphis. Your part is a church planting strategist. This is an important part of the Mid-South Baptist Association.
Oh, no doubt. There are approximately 200,000 internationals from all over the world, a large number of those being from the Hispanic, Latino countries from down south. But there are many, many other nations. We have been about the process of identifying those different people groups. There are hundreds of Sudanese here. We have one Sudanese work that is Southern Baptist that meets at the Macon campus of Leawood Baptist Church. It's called the River Nile. And then there is another Sudanese work that's called Cush. Is that right, Nasser?
Yes.
And I think they meet at First Evan.
Yes.
So there are two churches here that are primarily Sudanese-oriented works, but there are many other people groups here, and we can talk about that some other time.
Many of our Bott Radio Network listening friends today will remember previous programs where we've invited Pastor Joel Allen, who was with the Nile River Church, part of that fellowship. He is now living in Sudan. We have shared with him as he traveled back to Sudan a year ago. There was an election that took place, and just to bring our friends up to date that might not be aware, or just to remind you, an election took place back in January, I believe, of last year. That election was to separate the southern part of Sudan and become an independent state from the north. The north primarily ruled by a Muslim regime, dictatorship, causing these atrocities that we were talking about. The southern people group wanted to create a state primarily, I understand, Nasser, these are Christians. These are people who want to form a nation that fears and honors the God that you and I serve. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
And that has taken place. There was the election in January. There was a constitution was developed. A president was set. And I think that took place in June, I believe, of last year. Is that correct?
Yes, independence was in July 9.
And so the official name now is called
Republic of Southern Sudan.
What's happened here when we talk about the Nuba people, I've been doing some reading about this particular people group, is that when the lines were drawn for the separation from the north and the south, the Nuba people got caught just north of the boundary lines. These people are people who have stood with the southern Sudan, have fought with them over the years, and now, largely because of the oil reserves are in that area, the north has been bombing and killing and a genocide's taking place, and this is a horrible thing. And we want to bring our attention to this today. Greg, help me, and Pastor Nasser, help me. There was a verse I was trying to think about, and I didn't bring it with me in the studio, but it had to do with Scripture praying for those who are being persecuted.
Well, there are many scriptures that command us to look after those who have been persecuted and are being persecuted. The whole book of Hebrews basically deals with people who are on the run. They're scattered. They're being persecuted. Their homes are being burned. The commands for us to visit people in jail, all of these different issues, and to take them in are all relevant to what we're to be about doing. So when you're dealing with an issue like this, to me, this is out of precedent with most of the stuff we deal with, because these people are literally on the run. They're living in caves. They're suffering daily radical harassment. You mentioned the rockets. They're also dropping bombs on them from airplanes, and ground troops that are also coming into villages and burning their homes and driving them out.
This awful situation there in the Nuba Mountains among the Nuba people is being compared to what has taken place over so many years in Darfur, as a genocide is happening here.
That's correct.
Also want to welcome Nabil is with us too. Nabil, are you from Sudan?
Yes, sir.
And tell me about your involvement with Pastor Nasser at the Sudanese church.
Pastor Nasser, he's related to me. We arrived here in 1999. We came from Syria as refugees from Sudan. And he used to live in Pennsylvania. When he heard that we are here, so that's when we contact, and we moved him from Pennsylvania to here.
You realized that he was a good person to be around, and so you said, I want to make sure I can get him here to Memphis.
That's right.
Pastor, that must make you feel good to know that people respect you so much that want to be part of your ministry.
Thank you. Because they support me and they support the ministry that we start here. Brother Greg, he was the key that he's supporting the River Nile Baptist Church. We did really great ministry in Memphis, and we still continue. But because the crisis that is going on Nuba Mountain, now we try to focus on how we can help people in Nuba Mountain, and we can show them the love of Christ from here.
That's one of the things I'd like to say is, we've been working because since independence, many of the leaders in the Sudan have started to return back to their homeland to rebuild this nation. And our churches have been responding and beginning to help those who are going back to plant churches there. And that was our initial interest. But this has all changed because of this humanitarian crisis. And we have to drop back because literally the peoples that we are looking at in the Nuba Mountains will be dead before we could ever plant churches among them. And the urgency is very much a real thing that has to be dealt with now.
That's what we want to bring to the attention of our listeners right now across Bot Radio Network as we share about this need. And throughout the program, we'll be giving you opportunities, key points to pray and ways that you can share and help support efforts to bring relief to these dear people. Can we go back a little bit, Nabil, to your time in Sudan? What life was like prior to you becoming a refugee and having to leave your country?
Most of the time when I remember my back days, so I start feeling really bad because I grew up in an environment, Sudanese government, it wasn't really taking care of Nuba people because the color of his skin and are religious. So if you're Christian, if you're black and you're Muslim, they don't give you respect if you are a light-skinned person. And the time when we were there, really, it was really bad, really bad. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, I don't get like a cup of tea. I go to school for 8 hours and I come back and there's nothing I can eat at home. I have to wait for my mom to come from work, which is what they was doing. They used to wash those Arabs clothes and get a little bit of money to come and feed us at home. It was really sad time, and most of the time, just when I remember those days, I start crying.
And I can just sense in your sharing, just seeing the expression on your face, your heart, and I appreciate you sharing and being transparent with us so we can understand better. Pastor Greg, we don't, here in Memphis, don't really understand a lot what it means to suffer for being a Christian, being in a place where there's war and people are dying all around us. We know as an aftermath of all of the civil war that's taking place in Sudan that there are thousands of children, war children, don't have parents. They're roaming the streets. They're looking at food in garbage cans. I mean, this is a really sad thing. The positive thing is here, there's now a new nation that is trying to get on its feet in Sudan. But there's a fire that needs to be put out. Are the Nuba people, Pastor Nasser, are they Christian?
Yes, we have a great number of believers in Nuba Mountain. Also, we have still some people, they are Muslim. Some people say they are paganism, they are not Muslim and they are not Christian. They are facing the genocide from regime Sudan government. They are not Arab, as our brother they said, they're African. They live in the land that is rich with natural sources. The government tried to destroy them, that they can bring the tribes that is belong to them and support the government to live in that area. This is happened on the north part of Nuba Mountain. They brought some tribe from Chad, from Mali, from Burkina Faso. They are Muslims, and they give them a land to the north part of Nuba Mountain. They want to make sure they bring their people that they can live, and then they can destroy Nuba Mountain and move them to the south, that they can control the source that we have it on the ground, on that land. That is a part of their strategy that they are working with it. The other thing is because if you are not Muslim in Sudan, really you're not even second class. You're like sixth class. That is what is going on. Genocide have been taking place for many, many years, more than 20 years, since 1985, when the civilian war started in Sudan. People of Nuba, they have been dying, children, pastors, the church have been destroyed. The believers have been burned inside the church during their worship on Sunday. And we have video and we have evidence of that. The problem is no one went there to bring the media to the world. Some people, the world community, the national community, they know what is going on in Nuba Mountain, but I don't know why nobody get really very serious action against the Sudan government to stop this genocide that's going on for many years. This is a start again. 9 months, people of Nuba Mountain, they have been bombing with a plane. Antonov is coming every morning, evening, midnight, every time. And people, they leave their village, they live in cave, they live in forest, they live on mountains. There is no food because nobody was able to plan his land for farm. The situation is very serious, very, very serious. There is no way for people to wait or just to keep silent about what is going on in Sudan, in Nuba Mountain especially right now. That is why we are here. We try to pass this message away to the people and they can know what is going on in Nuba Mountain. May the Lord can move a heart of them. We need people to speak about Nuba Mountain. We need them to stand for Nuba Mountain. We need help for Nuba Mountain people. And that is urgent. It's not something that we can wait for a week or a month because now, right now, people, they are dying. They are dying by pumping. They are dying because there is no food. They are dying because there is no even water for them to drink. And they live in caves with wild animals. Nobody can imagine what is going on.
If I can just jump in there for the listeners to get the urgency again, it is because they have since independence, and actually right before independence, it started in June, the North Sudan began to bomb these Nuba people. And so they have had no opportunity to plant for the last planting season. Therefore, there have been no crops to gather. So they have actually consumed the seed corn. These are simple farmer people, and they live on a subsistence diet of corn and animals and other vegetables. But there was no opportunity to plant. So their normal cycle of planting and harvest was disrupted since June of last year. And now what they did have has been consumed. Rainy season starts there in the middle of May. If food is not taken over into that north, into what is called the red zone, then they're already at stage 4 humanitarian crisis, which means they're starving today. This is a big issue, and what Brother Nasser said, if we do not act now, we can have all the food in the world there come June, but we cannot move it into the mountains then. They have had to stop airlifts of food into there. Many of our listeners know Franklin Graham's Samaritan Purse. They actually had a Bible school and a great ministry going on in the Nuba Mountains. They were bombed out. This regime from the north dropped bombs upon that school and destroyed it and pushed them also back south of the border. The young man that was mentioned earlier, Brother Byron, was an actual member of the Samaritan's Purse. He married a Nubian lady and resigned his position and stays on in the Nuba Mountains. And you can Google his name and see what's happening there. He is reporting what is happening there on a real basis.
Yeah, he's really the eyes on the ground right now, and I didn't realize of his connection. The article I had in the New York Times didn't specify that he was a believer.
Yes,
but,
he is.
That's good news there, Greg. Thanks for that. We look at bringing relief into the Nuba Mountains, especially with the aggression of the Sudanese government. They're bombarding the roads, they're cutting off roads, blocking emergency supplies. We've seen this time and time again, gentlemen, when there is a relief need, people respond, and there's skids and supplies of food that can't reach the people. Are we looking at another situation like that? If our Bot Radio Network listeners respond, are we going to be able to know or see that these supplies will get to the people?
We do have a plan. Our Baptist Global Response, which is a arm of our International Mission Board, they have a World Hunger Fund, and 100% of the funds that are given to that World Hunger Fund actually go to purchase that. All the people and everything are already in place. We're negotiating with them how to move those supplies and to get those supplies there. Pastor Nasser will actually head the team that will be leaving here in April to go and to help purchase those supplies, probably from an adjoining nation, maybe Uganda or another nation there, and then to truck those to the border. And then there are people at the border. You mentioned the rebels. Well, that's what the North calls them. They call themselves freedom fighters.
Yes.
And they are fighting for the Nuba. And so they have trucks, and they know where the people are in the caves. They know where the people who have left their villages are. They know who has the most need, the most critical need. And they will take whatever supplies that they can get, and they will distribute them to the people as much as they can. And so there is a plan in place so that there can actually be a distribution of medical and food supplies to those people.
So our Bot Radio Network listeners, if I'm hearing you right, Greg, right now we are talking to an ambassador from Memphis, Pastor Nasser, who will be spearheading the journey to Sudan, to the Nuba people, to make sure that these supplies can reach where they need to go in the critical time. Is that right, Pastor?
That's exactly.
You're in correspondence with people there on the ground now.
Yes, we have a contact with people, and they are preparing for us the way, how we can move and buy supplies from Uganda through the southern Sudan and then to the border, and then from border to the red zone. What we mean with the red zone is the place behind the Ita camp. Ita is a large camp. There is more than 75,000 people. Those the refugees in Ita camp. But our plan is to target people behind the camp to the place that nobody reached it yet. We will be the first people from Memphis that can reach that area with food and medication. That is our plan. That is what we try to do, and that need to be really very soon. As Brother Greg said, because it's the rain season, is the most difficult season. We can, if we late, then there is no way for us to get this food behind that area.
Time is of essence right now as we do this program. I mean, time is of essence.
Exactly.
And we're going to be giving away to our friends to respond in just a moment. Nabil, what's this mean for you? I mean, when you hear about the efforts of people in the Mid-South listening to Bot Radio Network right now that potentially would respond and help the people of Nuba.
I'm really sure, and I have no doubt about it, that they will. And it's not the first time. We see and we hear the help. I'm sure they will do it, and it will be really good for the people, and it will be just a blessing to them, because we are here, we're full. So nobody sleeps without eating something. Always you have something to eat. But those people down there, they're really hungry. They don't have anything. I can't wait to see them they're eating something. and they're happy because we've been receiving calls. We have a lot of people down there. We're receiving we contact, and always their most biggest problem is they don't have anything to eat. A little what we make here, we send them to help them a little bit, and it's not enough. And we cannot help everybody, but there's some we give.
Pastor, this is a critical need. It's important for the Church of Jesus Christ to respond. We appreciate actor George Clooney making a statement so it gets the attention. Greg told me before we went on the air that there was an interview just Sunday of Mike Wallace interviewing George Clooney, who told him that if he had not gone and been arrested, he would not been on 60 Minutes. He would not been part of Mike Wallace's interview. Is that right, Greg?
Well, it's Chris Wallace's son.
Chris Wallace, I'm sorry.
But absolutely, that's exactly what he told him. Because all the hot spots, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, all those countries are getting all of the attention right now in the media. And it's only because a person like Clooney was arrested that he drew attention. That's exactly why he did it, to this cause. We have become very desensitized and callous towards what's happening. And I realize that all across the Horn of Africa, there is a famine and the people are starving. This is significantly different to me and to our churches because the Lord sent the Sudanese people here to our city, and there are 50 Nubians among those Sudanese. The church, our sister church, the River Nile Church, is organically connected to people in those Nuba Mountains that are being persecuted. And then we are spiritually connected. The largest evangelical church in the Sudan is among the Nuba people, which is one of the smallest tribes in Sudan. So this is a significant thing. A lot of people probably may not know this, but the Nuba people came out of Egypt with Moses and then trickled on down into the Sudan. They are the root people group of the Sudan. And so this is a very significant thing. It goes back many, many, many generations. That's one of the reasons, again, why they have been marked for extinction by this regime from the north.
When I was reading, Brother Greg, about the Nuba people, and it mentioned about their history of some 5,000 years, I thought, well, that's misprint. But now that you just told me their connection with Moses, that's very true. My goodness, I did not realize that connection here. Again, as you mentioned, the spiritual connection, that everyone listening who has a relationship with Jesus Christ, we are part of the family of God, and we are responding to a need together. Closing moments now, I want to let friends know how they can respond. What can they do? What should they do, Pastor?
The first thing, we need people to raise their prayer for Nuba Mountain. And then we need financial support that we can be able to buy the supplies and send it to the Nuba Mountain, as we were talking earlier, because it's the urgent need. I would like to take this moment and thank everyone who is listening or respond for this call that we made it right now.
Okay, Pastor Greg, give us some details. How can our friends respond? Who do they contact?
We have established a special relief fund within the Mid-South Baptist Association. Did that primarily for our churches so that they could give directly to that, and they are doing that. But we want to open that up for anyone who would like to give. Our offices are located at 6896 U.S. Highway 70 in Bartlett, Tennessee, 38133. You can contact our secretary there. Her name is Grace. And the phone number is 373-6161. That's area code 901. And that's the Mid-South Baptist Association. And make any checks or contributions to the Nuba Relief Fund. And what we're going to do is we're going to collect as much money. We have a modest goal of about $100,000. Nasser has worked out a budget of how we can purchase corn and medical supplies. He's already been in contact with some pharmaceutical groups there in the area. A lot of people are saying, can we donate stuff here? That's really not the most economic way because of the logistics to get things there with the systems that we understand that we have, which is the big problem, the logistics of getting it across that border. We need to act quickly and prudently. So if we can purchase that amount of supplies, what was the numbers that you gave me, the families we can feed?
We can be able to feed 2,000 families. If we give to each family, if we give them like 50 kilograms for food, and then we can be able to cover like 2,000 families.
Yes.
And if we get more, we can cover 4,000. Since we get more, then we can cover more family. But you're talking about the hundred thousands of people. They're running out of food.
Yeah, I think that's the context, is you have hundreds of thousands of people, and we're talking about here that we're going to be able to reach a few thousand families. Now, all of this is in motion, and I am praying, and I know many of the listeners will pray, that our government will act. And if you would just do a Google search again, you're going to find out that we have had representatives from the U.S. House of Representatives who have just returned from there, and that they are lobbying, and they're doing what they can. But pray for the administration that's there today, because there has been no action yet. Our government's dedicated to a lot of different things, but they're ignoring this one.
And we need voices to speak and speak to your representatives about this also, in addition to supporting. We're going to have to say goodbye on this program, but I'm going to ask our friends to hang around, and we're going to do a second program. I think we need to continue this for another day, so those who might not have heard this program can hear again the need that is in the Nuba people in the Nuba Mountains. So we'll continue our conversation on the next Mid-South Viewpoint. I'm Byron Tyler. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Mid-South Viewpoint. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can email us. Our address is wcrv@botradionetwork.com. This has been Mid-South Viewpoint, another Christian news and information feature from Bot Radio Network 640 AM.